Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday. Thank you for being with me today on this midweek moment as we just take a quick look into the birth story of Jesus Christ. We've been unwrapping this on our Sundays together, and I just wanted to take a moment and look at a different way of viewing it. If you look at the four Gospels, and if you've studied the Gospels at all, if you've read them at all, they are so different, aren't they? These four are different. They write in different ways. They are writing to different audiences, and all those things that you learned in literature class, you put into practice even as you are reading Scripture. Matthew is writing to a Jewish nation. And he has the most Old Testament prophecies of any of them. Luke is a doctor, and he is writing more toward the Gentile nation, and so he includes some things Matthew doesn't, and he addresses things in a different way, and to the point that he's including the shepherds and all these other things, while Matthew focuses on the royalty side. The messianic royalty, and so the Magi come to visit the king. Luke takes the viewpoint of, here's the king for the people. He is the Messiah. He's the Messiah promised for the people, and he shows a little more humanness. Mark just ignores it. Mark didn't even talk about it. Now, if you know that Mark is being written down as Peter is dictating it to Mark, or at least sharing the information, we all know that Peter is a very concise Reader's Digest kind of person. He just throws it out there. Mark was the first gospel written, and the birth was not as critical to him as just sharing the reality of who the Messiah is. He basically begins at his baptism. Well, and then you get to John, and John is just different than the other three. Now, there's a word that people use meaning sameness or likeness. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are like each other, and so they are synoptic in the fact that they are of the same nature. But you read John is structured differently. He's just structured differently. His audience is different. He's more of a global audience. He's not viewing any one particular thing, and he has a purpose in why he writes. And so when you read John, you don't get a birth narrative in John either. You don't get the birth of Jesus. You don't get the angels that are speaking to anybody. You don't get the angels and the host singing in the heavens. You don't get Hark the Herald. You don't get any of those nice carols coming out of John. You get this philosophical, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and everything that was is of God. He gets this philosophical thing going. But there is a one-verse birth narrative that John presents. Go look it up. It's in John 1:14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. For those of us that may be a little more of the Reader's Digest version people that may not give all of the extra stuff sometimes in our communication techniques and the way that we talk, and Twitter and Facebook have reduced paragraphs into 140 characters, and so some of these things have created something that maybe we would appreciate John even more, that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we saw his glory, and the world saw his glory, but didn't understand it, didn't receive it. And we're gonna dive into that in January. But when you see that the word, this word, the logos, the word, that's the Greek for word, is dwelling among us. He became flesh. The miracle of birth, the miracle of conception, the miracle of birth, while we can scientifically explain it away, there are aspects of that are nothing more than the miraculous hand of God forming and shaping and doing all of these things. Sure, we can scientifically explain it, but I think that there's a spiritual exposition that we can't fully comprehend and understand the way that God works. But to consider for a moment that God, in the form of God's son, Jesus, in the way that we understand that. And boy, God was graceful in letting us understand these things in the way we could understand them. I mean, we want to talk about God the Father, God the Spirit, God the Son, and we try to explain the Trinity. Let me tell you something. I think there is so much more to that than we could ever think or imagine. But to consider for just a moment that the God of the universe, that is eternal creator, sustainer, speaker of nothingness into something, came and became flesh. He didn't have to do that, but he did. He came to this world. He went from spirit to physical. He went from far to close. He went from private to public. He closed the gap in every way imaginable. A gap that many of us don't even know we have, a gap that many still don't realize they have, a gap that is beyond our abilities to close. God, in his great love, said, I'll close it for you. And the word became flesh and dwelt among us. When we think about this season and we think about what's happening in this season, let us contemplate for just a second the philosophical, that the word, God, came to us, came down to us. He existed among us. He lived among us. He experienced the experiences among us. We had the ability to behold his glory, John says. The glory of God in human flesh. Tremendous consideration that God would do that for us. What does that mean what does that tell us? Well, let's consider this. If God didn't love us, he wouldn't have done it. If God didn't consider you special, he wouldn't have come. If he didn't consider you worthy, he wouldn't have done it. If he didn't consider you valuable, he wouldn't have done it. If you weren't precious to him, why would he go to such extremes? But here's the thing. I don't know what you're feeling today, and I don't know the pressures and the stresses. I know some that are listening that comment regularly. I know you're dealing with health issues. You're dealing with stresses of family, extended family issues. We're dealing with that in our own home. We've got all these issues going on. God thought enough of you. He believes you are special and valuable and worthy. This is how he feels about you. So don't let what the world wants to tell you affect you this moment. Hey, we all struggle with it. Hey, I do, you do. We struggle with how the messages the world gives to us. You're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too old, you're too young, you're too this, you're too that, whatever. Those things of childhood, we don't grow out of some of those things, do we? We just take on adult roles and adult conversations and adult phraseology, and we still do the same things. And we still need to be loved and supported. And my friends, as much as we might find love and support in our friends and our family and our spouses and our kids and our parents, it does not compare to the deep and lasting and forever love that God has for us, that he demonstrated in Jesus. Not just the cross, but he left heaven and the word became flesh and dwelt among us. Putting love into motion is what God did for us. And that's something that we're going to talk about in January as we start a new series, January 10th, called Love in Motion. And we're going to examine what it means for love to be put into motion. As God put it in motion to you and to me, as we put it into motion to one another, and as we put love into motion into our community. If we want to make the connections that God has for us, what does that look like? What does it mean? What are the ramifications of that? What is it? January 10th, we're going to take a look at Love in Motion, a 4-part series in this. And then we're going to follow that up with a study of prayer in February. Now, don't forget a couple of things as we close out this day. First of all, I'm taking next week off. I'll be out with family and at least for a week, maybe 2. So don't get overly concerned if we're not having the daily doses for a little while. We have some family and some travel that we have going on. So I'll be out for a couple of weeks. Tomorrow will be our final dose, probably for the year. So I don't make promises. So probably for the year, it may be our final one for this year. But as we come into the next year, we're going to be looking at making connections. So as we approach the end of the year, may God bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and bring you peace. I hope that you have family and friends that you can visit with, even if it's socially distant or on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is that you're doing. Spend a little time with family. Close some of the gaps that you might have in your family in the way that God closed the gaps between he and you. May we close the gaps with one another as well. If you have any year-end gifts that you want to give, we need those postmarked by the 31st. You can mail them, bring them by, drop them in to the church during worship on the 20th, or you can do it online at fbccrowley.org. December 27th and January 3rd are online only worship times, still at 9 and 11:15, but they are online only. With the rise of the pandemic and the rise of cases here in Tarrant County and the rise in Crowley too, with Christmas coming, we felt that it would be in everybody's best interest that we have online opportunities only. No, nothing on campus December 27th or January 3rd. Hey, I also want to remind you, hey, a very special treat is coming to you to a local screen in your own home, a Christmas Eve online event. We're putting this together this week, should be finished up this week. It's going to be a fun time. A little old, a little new, a little original. It's going to be a good time. And I hope that you will join us at either 4 or 7 or midnight as we will premiere an online event for you just to usher in the season. We could not and did not feel it was appropriate to have an on-campus event, but we did want to provide a gift to you and something to you. Hope you enjoy it. Look forward to you December 24th, 4, 7, or midnight. And we are online December 27th and 3rd. We'll be back together January 10th, but we will not be in the sanctuary. Don't forget, we have the HVAC situation renovation coming up. 9 o'clock in the gym, 11:15 in the youth building. So just be aware of some of these changes. We'll keep communicating with you and let you know of things as they come. Merry Christmas. Have a great holiday season. Love you, and we'll see you after a while.